The call came in the mid-morning lull, a time Inna Pavlovna usually reserved for planning menus and scrutinizing household accounts. The name on the screen, Galina, flashed with an insistence that promised gossip, not goodwill. "Enochka, you won't believe what I've just heard." Galina's voice was a theatrical whisper, laced with the delight of someone delivering catastrophic news about a mutual acquaintance. Only this time, the subject was far closer to home. "Galia, my dear, what is it? You sound distressed." "It's about Vanechka. My Olenka is in tears, absolutely devastated." Inna's perfectly manicured fingers tightened around the phone. A premonitory chill, sharp and familiar, settled in her stomach. "Vanya? What has he done?" "He's ended things with her." "Just like that." "And that's not all." Galina paused, a master of the dramatic reveal. "He's already seeing someone else. Some girl. A student, they say. Lives in a dormitory." The word hung in the air, ugly and common. Obshchaga. A place of shared bathrooms, peeling linoleum, and transient lives. Inna's vision momentarily whited out with a fury so pure it was almost serene. "Galia, what on earth are you saying? That simply cannot be." Her voice was ice, cutting through her friend's performative distress. "I wish it weren't. Olenka is heartbroken. We all thought, well, we had such plans." "Plans?" "Yes. The plans were the cornerstone of it all. Years of carefully cultivated friendship with Galina and her husband, a successful developer. Casual conversations about futures intertwined. Alia was a docile, predictable girl from an excellent family. A merger in every sense that mattered. Inna had promised, in that vague, powerful way mothers do, that their families would be joined. It was a social contract, signed and sealed in countless shared lunches and exchanged favors. "Well," Inna said, the steel returning to her voice, a general mobilizing her forces. "I will have a very serious conversation with him tonight. Don't you worry for a second. Even if it is exactly as you say, I will sort this problem out. You know I will." She hung up before Galina could offer more details, the plastic of the phone casing creaking under her grip. The facts arranged themselves in her mind with brutal clarity. Her son, her Ivan, had discarded the polished, suitable daughter of her best friend. And for what? For some little nobody from a student barracks. Some provincial climber with cheap clothes and big ambitions. This was not a romance. This was an insult. A direct challenge to her authority, her judgment, and the meticulously curated future she had built for her family in her mind. A cold, focused anger replaced the initial shock. If Vanya is playing the fool, she thought, gazing out the window at their manicured garden, he will be a fool for life. Love, he'll call it. Well, we'll see about that. She would arrange a very different kind of lesson for him. One he wouldn't forget. The elegant, silent living room felt like a courtroom as Inna Pavlovna entered. The only sound was the soft rustle of her husband Grigory Valerievich's newspaper. He sat in his preferred armchair, a fortress of calm indifference amidst the tastefully bland decor. She positioned herself directly opposite him, a prosecuting attorney ready to deliver the indictment. "Grisha, did you know that our son has thrown over Olga?" Grigory lowered the financial section by a few inches, peering over the top with mild, detached curiosity. "Olga? Were they even officially dating?" Inna's lips pressed into a thin line. "Well, practically. They went to the cinema several times, at the very least. Not that Vanya had much choice in the matter, as you'll recall." Her voice grew sharper, pointed. "You were the one who purchased those tickets. You were the one who insisted on inviting Galina and that daughter of hers over so often." He considered this, then gave a small, indifferent shrug, the newspaper lowering further. "You know, on second thought, if he did leave her, I can't say I blame him. The girl is as plain as her mother. A face that could stop a clock, not start a conversation." A dry, almost imperceptible chuckle escaped him. Frankly, being seen with her in public might make a man develop a sudden stutter. Inna drew in a sharp, furious breath. Her husband's flippancy was a spark to her tinder-dry outrage. "So, you don't care, is that it? You have no concern for our son's future? You're perfectly content to see him shackle his life to some Dubious little creature from a dormitory? You simply don't care about anything. Grigory Valerievich set his paper aside entirely now, folding it with deliberate neatness. He looked at his wife not with anger, but with the weary patience of a man observing a predictable natural phenomenon, like a sudden summer squall. He tilted his head. What's the real concern here, Anna? Are you worried this girl will eat us out of house and home? That we won't be able to support another mouth? He paused, a ghost of a real smile touching his lips. Though, now that I think of it, you came from a dormitory yourself once upon a time. And as I recall, you never had a particularly voracious appetite. The remark was delivered with such casual, clinical precision that for a moment, Inna was struck utterly speechless. The air she had gathered for a scorching retort died in her lungs. Her face flushed with a heat that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. By the time she had marshaled her fury into words, her opponent had already executed a flawless tactical retreat. Grigory was on his feet, newspaper tucked under his arm. I've just remembered some rather pressing paperwork in the study, he announced to the room at large, already moving toward the door with the smooth, unhurried gait of a man exiting a theater before the final, tedious act. Best to deal with it now. He was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of his cologne and the echo of his infuriating logic. Inna stood fuming, her carefully prepared arguments shouting into a void. Shouting at his empty chair was beneath her dignity. The conclusion was as clear as the crystal vase on the mantelpiece. Her husband would be no ally in this battle. He viewed the entire situation as a trivial distraction, a minor folly of youth. He had retreated to his study, his sanctuary of stock reports and silence. Fine, she thought, the initial shock hardening into a colder, more determined resolve. If he won't be part of the solution, he can be part of the furniture. I don't need his help. She had managed this family's social trajectory for decades. She had navigated far more complex situations than a son's misguided infatuation. She would handle this herself. She knew exactly how to apply the correct pressure in the correct places. The bomb dropped over a quiet weekday dinner, delivered with Ivan's characteristic, unassuming directness. He speared a piece of roast chicken, chewed thoughtfully, and then said, as if commenting on the weather, "Mom, Dad, I'm getting married." The clatter of Inna Pavlovna's fork against her fine china plate was a gunshot in the silent dining room. She stared, her hand frozen midway to her mouth. Grigory Valerievich, however, lowered his soup spoon and broke into a broad, genuine smile. Well, it's about time, he boomed, a note of relief in his voice. You're practically knocking on 30's door. A man needs a family. Ivan laughed, a warm, easy sound that grated on Inna's nerves. Whoa, Dad, rein it in a little. I just turned 27 2 weeks ago. No need to rush me to the retirement home just yet. Inna found her voice, though it emerged strained and thin. Married? Ivan to whom? She already knew the answer, but she needed to hear him say it, to make the disaster official. To Masha. You'll meet her. He said the name with a softness that made Inna's stomach clench. And when, she asked, the words tasting of ash, is this happening? Oh, we haven't set a date yet, Ivan shrugged, reaching for the water pitcher. Got to do the formal introductions first, you know? Pick a season, all that. Inna exhaled slowly, a controlled release of pressure. So, there was a window. 3 months, perhaps 4. Time was a currency, and she had just been granted a lump sum to invest in a corrective campaign. A meticulous, unstoppable plan began to crystallize in her mind. The introductory dinner the following Saturday was a masterclass in restrained hostility disguised as hospitality. Masha arrived exactly on time, a point against her. In Inna's book, a confident girl would have been fashionably late. She was a small, fine-boned creature, a pale blonde with wide, watchful eyes. The dress she wore was simple, likely homemade, and her makeup was applied with an unpracticed hand. Provincial, Inna's internal critic sneered. Exactly as expected. The meal commenced with Grigory asking benign questions about the weather and traffic. Ivan was uncharacteristically attentive, filling Masha's water glass before it was half empty. Inna observed it all from behind a mask of polite interest, her gaze as assessing as a jeweler examining a suspect diamond. So Mashenka Ina began, her tone sweet as artificial sweetener. Where is your family from? A small town in the neighboring region, Masha replied, her voice quiet but clear. We moved here not long ago. My father is a chef. My mother is a seamstress. Chef. Seamstress. The words landed in Ina's mind with the thud of social death sentences. She had a brief, vivid flash of future gatherings, introducing them as the cook and the dressmaker. She mentally rolled her eyes so hard she feared they might get stuck. And what do you do yourself, dear? I'm finishing my studies. And I help my mother with her sewing work. Ina let out a sigh she made sure was audible, a soft, world-weary sound. I see. She turned her attention to her son, her voice shedding its faux sweetness. So, Vanechka, a young family, just starting out. It's a difficult path. Everything will naturally fall on your shoulders financially. Or, she added, arching a brow, are you operating under the assumption that we will be providing for you both indefinitely? Ivan's head snapped up. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm merely stating facts, son. Look at the situation. It's simple arithmetic. She gestured vaguely with her knife. Ambition is one thing. Realism is another. Grigory glanced from his wife's implacable face to Masha's, which had now colored a deep, painful pink. He opened his mouth, then seemed to think better of it, choosing instead to take a sudden, profound interest in the arrangement of peas on his plate. A wise man knew when a storm was not his to weather. Masha said nothing. She simply looked down at her own hands, folded in her lap, accepting the blow in silence. Weak, Ina diagnosed with cold satisfaction. No spine. This will be easier than I thought. After Ivan had escorted a visibly subdued Masha home, he returned to the apartment vibrating with anger. What was that, Mom? Why would you say those things? Ina waved a dismissive hand, already clearing the table. I said nothing that wasn't true. I was being practical. If she can't handle a simple conversation about reality, how will she handle a marriage? She fixed him with a look that had ended arguments since his childhood. I didn't invite her into our home to be coddled. Ivan stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled, his shoulders slumping in a gesture of familiar defeat. He knew this dance. Arguing was a circular, exhausting maze with no exit. He looked toward his father's study, but the door was firmly shut. Grigory had long ago perfected the art of strategic absence. Alone in her impeccable kitchen, Ina Pavlovna felt the first stirrings of a plan. The girl was soft, sensitive, easily crushed. All she needed was the right kind of pressure, applied with surgical precision. Humiliation, she decided, was a far more efficient tool than argument. It was time to move from defense to a decisive, elegant offense. The plan did not come to her in a flash of genius, but rather coalesced like a slow-forming cyst of spite. It presented itself not as a dramatic scheme, but as the obvious, elegant solution. Humiliation was the lever, and public shame the fulcrum. If Masha could be made to feel like a pitiful, out-of-place fool in a world she could never hope to belong to, she would remove herself. Quietly, without a scene, saving everyone the unpleasantness. It was, in Ina's mind, almost merciful in its efficiency. The method was simple, brutal, and relied on two things: Masha's predictable insecurity and the unimpeachable authority of a price tag. Ina would extend an olive branch, a poison one. She would invite the girl for a private, girls-only lunch. An apology for her previous bluntness, a chance to connect away from the men. The venue was key: Aquamarine, the most opulent, intimidatingly expensive restaurant in the city, a place of whispered conversations and silent judgments where a single salad cost more than a dormitory student's weekly stipend. The scenario played out perfectly in Ina's imagination. Masha, flustered and underdressed, would arrive early or late, already off balance. She would gawk at the menu, her eyes widening at the numbers. Ina would play the magnanimous hostess, urging her to order anything, the most exotic, costly dishes. She would then orchestrate a moment to slip away, a prolonged visit to the powder room, a fake urgent call. And she would simply not return. Left alone at the table with the grotesque evidence of her own aspirational overreach, the half-eaten delicacies, the empty champagne flute, Masha would panic. The bill would arrive, a figure so astronomical it would be a physical blow. The waitstaff's politeness would curdle into suspicion. Perhaps a manager would be summoned. Maybe even the police. The image was delicious. Masha, flushed with mortification, stammering explanations, utterly exposed as a fraud who couldn't pay her way. The scandal would be contained, a private, searing burn. She would be too ashamed to ever face Ivan or his family again. She would simply vanish, a lesson learned. It was a plan that required patience. 2 weeks, Inna decided. Let the dust from the disastrous dinner settle. Let Ivan believe the storm had passed. Let Masha's guard drop completely. She obtained the girl's number through a feat of casual espionage, glancing at Ivan's phone when he left it charging in the hall. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, she made the call. Mashenka? Hello, it's Inna Pavlovna. Her voice was a masterpiece of contrite warmth. Vanya's mother. Listen, I've been thinking. Our dinner the other week ended on such a practical note. It was all so formal. I feel terrible. I'd love a chance to talk, just us women. No men, no pressure. How about lunch? My treat, of course. But, she added, her tone dipping into a conspiratorial whisper, let's keep it our little secret from Vanechka, Give us a chance to really talk without him hovering. On the other end, Inna could hear the stunned silence, the soft intake of breath. Perfect. The hook was set. The girl, too polite or too terrified to refuse, and likely clinging to a naive sliver of hope for reconciliation, would have no choice but to agree. The scene unfolded with a different texture than Inna had imagined. Masha did not arrive flustered. She arrived precisely on time, a fact that irked Inna Pavlovna immensely. She had hoped for the pathetic spectacle of a girl waiting alone, twisting her napkin. And her attire, it was not the frumpy, homemade dress Inna had expected. It was a simple, but impeccably cut sheath in a muted gray, the kind of understated elegance that spoke of money so old it had stopped needing to shout. It looked foreign. Probably some cheap fast fashion knockoff, Inna assured herself, dismissing a flicker of unease. Mashenka, you look refreshed, Inna said, the greeting laced with a backhanded chill. Sit. Order anything your heart desires. Absolutely anything. She made a grand show of studying the menu herself, then summoned the waiter and, with the performance of a connoisseur, ordered the most ludicrously expensive items, white truffle shavings on a plate of plain pasta, caviar blini. A bottle of champagne whose name she mispronounced. It was a grotesque parody of luxury, a meal designed for Instagram, not ingestion. She watched Masha's face for signs of awe or intimidation. Masha simply nodded, a small, unreadable smile playing on her lips. She ordered a sensible salad and a glass of mineral water. Her eyes, Inna noted with growing irritation, kept drifting not to the opulent decor, but to the kitchen doors, as if looking for someone. The meal progressed with stilted small talk. Inna held court, dropping names of designers and discussing the absurd cost of imported cheeses, her monologue a weapon meant to highlight an uncrossable chasm. Masha listened, nodded, and offered little. The perfect, meek victim. Yet, something felt off. The girl's posture was not one of cowed submission, but of observation. As if she were studying Inna. After an hour, Inna executed her exit. Oh, my phone is vibrating. And I must visit the ladies' room. Excuse me for just a moment, darling. She swept away, not toward the restrooms, but straight for the grand, marble-clad foyer and out into the bright afternoon, the automatic doors sighing shut behind her. A thrill, cold and sharp, shot through her. Phase 1 was complete. Now, the waiting game. She imagined the scene inside, the bill presented, Masha's face draining of color, the awkward silence, the manager's stern look. She hailed a taxi, a smile of vindication touching her lips. Back in the restaurant, 20 minutes passed. Masha finished her water, checked her watch, a sleek, minimalist piece Inna hadn't noticed, and finally signaled the host, a young man who had been glancing their way with unusual frequency. Excuse me, Masha asked, her voice calm. The lady I was with, in the cream suit, has she returned? The host shifted, his professional mask slipping into one of mild embarrassment. Actually, madam, she left the establishment approximately 20 minutes ago. Masha didn't gasp. She didn't look shocked. A slow, genuine laugh escaped her, bright and clear, surprising even herself. So that was it. The grand play. Not poison, not a shouting match. Just a crude, juvenile trap. The potential mother-in-law had tried to strand her with a bill fit for a czar, hoping to see her led away in cuffs or tears. She was still smiling when she felt a presence beside the table. She looked up into the concerned, furrowed face of her father, still in his chef's whites, a faint dusting of flour on his sleeve. Masha? What's going on? My sous chef said he saw that woman bolt out of here like the place was on fire. She didn't. She did, Papa, Masha said, the laughter fading into a wry shake of her head. She ordered a mountain of the most expensive nonsense on the menu and then ran away. Left me to face the music. Her father's face, usually a landscape of calm concentration, darkened. He looked from the obscene spread on Ina's side of the table to his daughter's composed face. The pieces clicked. This wasn't just rudeness, it was a calculated act of cruelty, a deliberate attempt to destroy his child's dignity. Yet, he said, the single word a low rumble of disapproval. This is too much. This is not how adults behave. This is, he searched for the word, his hands clenching at his sides. This is a disgrace. Masha saw the familiar glint in his eye, the one that appeared when a supplier tried to sell him subpar produce or when a critic wrote a lazy, unfair review. It was the glint of a quiet man who had built something from nothing and would not see it, or his family, disrespected. Papa, it's okay, she started, but he held up a flour-dusted hand. No, Masha. It is not okay. He looked at the remnants of Ina's grotesque feast, then back toward the kitchen, his mind visibly working, plotting a course. Using such methods, it's beneath anyone. If she wants to play games, he said, his voice dropping to a steely murmur, we can play a different kind of game. One with proper rules.